So I want to say something about what technology is. Technology arises from human interaction. It's a web of systems that allows them, in the case of Thomas Edison, to fail 10,000 times before he can succeed the first time.
I can't remember a time where there has been so much up in the air. I lived through the social media bubble. I remember the dot-com bubble very clearly, the run-up of the internet. Now that I can look back on that time and look at where we are today, I feel that the level of change is much, much more significant and much more fundamental than it was 20 years ago.
I think it's important for us to recognize that technology is a gift, that it is one of the tools that can help us mitigate some of our biggest challenges, whether it is climate change or human migration or resource scarcity or diseases of senescence. It has a remarkable way of making scarcity disappear and making rare things abundant.
All of us here actually grew up not in the age of technology. We grew up in the age of oil, in the age of automobiles, and the age of industry. And if we just scroll forward not long in the history of industry, 10 years, the picture has completely changed. Now the world's largest companies are all technology companies breeding off data. So something fundamental has happened in that 10-year period. It was a switch. It was a moment. First is that we are in a deployment phase of new technologies, products, and services. The second is that many of these underlying technologies improve at an exponential rate. And the third is that these technologies, as we have seen today during fuel, are converging very, very rapidly.
This second season of the Exponential View podcast is all about the political economy of technology. In previous episodes, I spoke to economists, investors, entrepreneurs, and policymakers shaping the future of society and technology.
It's like a lake where we're throwing stones at them at a faster and faster rate. And the interesting point is not the stone, the interesting point is the ripple effects.
But I do think that over the next 15 to 20 years, the promise of technology is greater than it's ever been. But we have to be therefore much more concerned with some of our experiences over the last 10 to 15 years of the negative consequences of just being too technocratic in our approaches.
I think we run a risk of focusing too much on the things that we grew up with and assuming there's a permanence about them. There are methods of innovation that you can bring and say, how else would we cut this problem? And we have to recognize that any group that's in power is going to try to use its group power and its structural position where it can influence policymakers and it can influence the press and the market to say the way it's currently done, the power that we currently have, is the right way.
There's one thing that is certain: millions of people's jobs will change.
What we actually have to think about is that for many people, change will be done to them. They won't have the lucky position to, watch a film like this or even, be in it. It will be transmitted to them through the mechanisms of the economy and their employer and their firm. Change will be done to them.
Quick positive is we're taking advantage of a lot of this technology right now, which is why the discussions end up being about the limitations and the downside, because we're already gaining from the upside. And so we sit here, we're going, do we really want this? What are all the downsides? So that is a maturation of the discussion and a sense of its direction.
It's up to us in that sense, because we do have the transmission mechanisms, both through influencing our local councillor or our MP, through frankly even retweeting the right material. As we move into this moment of what I consider to be a very, very significant change that is not being driven by this exogenous shock of a hammer blow that is, say, World War II, but is being driven essentially endogenously by the economy just churning and innovating as it does consistently. And those changes are going to come rather quickly, so be well informed, therefore be opinionated, and therefore be willing to participate in the discourse.